David Brewster here with another 3-for-all, and this is 3 double picking workouts. Now, double picking is an alternate picking concept that's been around for a very, very long time. And as the name, kind of suggests, we're going to be picking everything twice or double in this lesson. So to kind of give your ears an idea of what we're going to be talking about here, just think of really old blues, blues turnarounds and those old kind of boogie woogie, single note riffs, stuff like this. This isn't really a blues lesson, but that's kind of the sound or the idea of what we're going to be tapping into here. As you could probably hear and catch with that little demonstration, those blues riffs, there I was picking everything twice or double picking. And in this lesson, like I said, it's not really a blues lesson. We're going to be looking more at like a rock and a shred approach. So I'm going to draw a link between the Allman Brothers, Whitesnake, and Dream Theater in this lesson. And you might be thinking, well, what do those 3 bands have to do with each other? Stick around and you'll see, because we're going to unlock this technique and kind of introduce some kind of famous examples at the same time. Aside from the boogie blues, kind of riffs and some of those turnarounds and stuff that you hear, one thing we can do is we can just apply this to just a basic scale. Let's just take like an A minor pentatonic box right here and double pick through the whole scale. It's very simple. But you have to really focus on making sure that you have a clean, downstroke and upstroke on every single note, which is a great exercise. So to dive a little deeper with this concept, just look at a song like Whipping Post by the Allman Brothers, a classic, classic song. Even Frank Zappa used to end concerts with Whipping Post, so this song has been around for a very long time. And in the tune, there's an interlude, and you'll hear it's basically a double-picked A Dorian scale. And I'm definitely really familiar with the Allman Brothers version. And I know when they played it, they kind of started on the low E string and moved over to the A, and then just slowly started kind of creeping up, the A and eventually the D string. So I've refingered this to kind of move through positions across the strings instead of just kind of moving up, a single string. And we're mainly doing that just to kind of expand the range of the scale and then also give you a little bit more exercise across the strings too, instead of just doing it on 1 or 2 strings. This is just a double picked A Dorian scale starting on the 5th fret on the low E, and we're going to work our way up the scale. And there is a chromatic note that's introduced. The G sharp is kind of thrown in right before we finish with the final A. But it sounds like this. Right? That very famous interlude from that song. But if you see that little part, you can see we're double picking every note. We're actually double picking each note twice. So it's like double picking, on each note. The next workout actually is borrowed from Still of the Night by Whitesnake, and of course, the mighty John Sykes was on guitar when that album was recorded, and this is the interlude to Still of the Night. And this is an E minor, and you'll hear this little melodic phrase. Something like that. And it's just basically E natural minor, or E Aeolian. But it's double picked. So that famous interlude sounds something like this. Playing a melody, but we're double picking through the whole thing. Now there you could see I kind of moved over and grabbed D on the B string, which is a pretty big jump between the notes there. And I have refingered this as like a fingering exercise. And if you're curious about that, use all 4 of your fingers. And instead of grabbing that D on the B string, grab the D on the G on the 7th fret. And it turns into this, additional challenge for your fret hand, like this. And there you can see I'm using my pinky, and I'm avoiding, my index finger, and reaching over and grabbing that F sharp and G with my middle and 3rd finger, which that's kind of tricky. Something like that. And that makes it much harder. The last example here comes from Dream Theater, and this is from the song Learning to Live, which is on Images and Words, and this is one of my favorite Dream Theater songs. It's just packed with all these cool, guitar parts, and it's an interesting tune because it kind of like swirls around in these different moods and sounds too. This section takes place right after the main guitar solo. It is kind of a long song, but it's basically right in the middle of the tune pretty much. And you'll hear this D add 9 over F sharp, and he's just really picking through it, one note at a time. He's not double picking yet. And then you'll hear him move that up a whole step to an E add 9 over G sharp, which is really cool. And this is where he starts double picking. And there you can hear he's picking through it, pretty fast. And he's also kind of slightly palm muting too. It's not a heavy palm mute. It's just enough to kind of keep the notes from kind of bleeding or ringing into each other, because you don't want this. Even though that sounds kind of cool to let it ring. But he's kind of keeping the notes separate, keeping it really kind of refined. You can actually take that fingering, that chord shape, and move that add 9 slash chord around, and I've kind of converted this into a few picking exercises, just making variations on that idea. And you could start with the D add 9 over F sharp, and move that up a whole step, and move it up a half step, and so that'd be an F add 9 over A. One little bonus, workout I'm going to throw in here is another Dream Theater song from the song Metropolis, and that's another very lengthy Dream Theater song, and it's kind of near the center of the song, or the middle of the tune. There's this, really interesting kind of sus2 activity where he's not double picking through the whole chord, and that's kind of why I've added this here at the end. He's really just double picking select notes of the chord, which that really makes it kind of jump and stand out. And there you can see he's playing this B sus2. And there he basically saves the double picking until he hits the octave B right there on the 9th fret on the D string. And then he moves down to an A sus2. And there he's basically double picking the E, and he also double picked the A there at the very end. see he's kind of double picking select notes in that series of chords because it moves from B sus2 to A sus2, and then eventually B sus2 down to G, and then back to A. So it's a really interesting progression. I like the sound of those chords for sure. Really cool guitar part. That's going to wrap up this look at 3 double picking workouts, and they were kind of pulled from famous songs and famous moments of some random songs, but you can find examples of double picking like this almost everywhere. You just have to really keep your ear open, kind of keep your eyes open, and you'll hear it. Sometimes it might just happen for a second or two. Sometimes it might be an entire riff or a section of a song too. Alright, so leave some comments and some feedback, and be sure to subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back with some more content and lessons before you know it. Thank you.